Invincible Season 4 just wrapped up, and I need to talk about it because I genuinely don't think I've been this emotionally destroyed by an animated show since I was a child watching something that I probably shouldn't have been watching. I'm going to be covering topics like this daily, so if you want the honest truth, hit that sub button. Let's get into it. 8 episodes. 8 episodes that took me on a journey that I did not consent to. At various points, I was entertained, nostalgic, confused, bored, physically nauseated, scared, and then, in the finale, quietly devastated in a way that I'm still not fully processing. And I mean that as a compliment. This was my favorite season of Invincible, and I want to talk through it episode by episode because this season deserves more than just a, yeah, it was good. It deserves a proper autopsy. So, the season drops on March 18th, 3 episodes at once, as is the Invincible tradition of making sure you have no sleep and no plans for the next day. Episode 1 is a reintroduction. Mark's back, the world is still recovering, and the show takes its time easing you back in rather than immediately throwing a Viltrumite through your face. Which, honestly, appreciated. The thing that stood out most to me in episode 1 was the conversation between Mark and Eve's dad. Now, if you've read the comics, you know that scene exists, but the show handled it with a level of subtlety the comic didn't quite have. It's not an in your face moment, it's quiet, it's uncomfortable in the right way. It does more by saying less, which is exactly how that kind of conversation should go. It's the kind of writing that makes you realize the showrunners are actually understanding these characters and aren't just adapting to panels, they're adapting feelings. Strong start, 8 out of 10, sets the table without spilling anything on you. Episode 2 is where this season announced itself. We get the full Viltrumite backstory, what Omni-Man actually did for the Empire, the history of Viltrum, the Purge, all of it. And it is a lot, in the best way. For anyone who's read the comics, this is the stuff that's referenced but never fully visualized. Seeing it rendered, hearing J.K. Simmons carry the weight of all that history through his voice alone, the man could read a grocery list and make you feel something. It recontextualizes everything Nolan has done and adds new layers to why he is the way he is. This episode is one of the best the show has ever produced, not just season 4. The show. Full stop. It's the kind of episode that makes you sit quietly after it ends instead of immediately starting the next one. You just need a minute. You earned a minute. Episode 3 gives us something a little different. It's almost a throwback to the earlier days of the show. Titan and Mr. Liu are back, and there's a very season 1 energy to it. A contained, street-level story that reminds you this show can do smaller scale just as well as galaxy-ending conflict. But the real meat of this episode is Mark and Oliver. I love what they're doing with these two. Oliver is growing up, maybe too fast, and his whole worldview is fundamentally different from Mark's. Mark believes in restraint, in the value of every life, in doing things the hard way because the hard way is the right way. Oliver looks at that and he thinks it's adorable. They love each other, they die for each other, but they are fundamentally not aligned on what it means to be a hero. That tension is one of the quieter, more interesting threads this season, and episode 3 is where you really start to feel it simmer. Then there's episode 4, Herm. Look, I'll be honest, it's the weakest episode of the show easily, and the pacing is off, some of the story beats feel rushed in ways that actually slow everything down, which is a paradox I didn't know was possible until I watched it. But here's my theory. They did this on purpose, not maliciously, strategically. Think about it. You're building to what is arguably the most viscerally brutal fight scene in the entire show. You need people to feel comfortable, safe almost, lulled into a false sense of security. Okay, we're back in a normal episode. Episode 4 is narrative anesthesia. It just doesn't work as great as an episode. If I'm just coping, let me know in the comments. at least we got to see how much stronger Mark has gotten. He is not the same kid who got destroyed by his dad. He's leveled up significantly, which you need to understand going into episode 5, because episode 5 is going to make you question your decision to watch television. I almost had to stop watching at episode 5, and I don't say that lightly. I've sat through some of the most genuinely difficult television in my life. This fight, Mark vs. Conquest Round 2, is one of the most stomach-churning, uncomfortable viewing experiences I've had in a very long time. And the show earns that. It's not gratuitous for shock value. It's the show forcing you to sit in what violence actually costs. What it looks like when two beings who can't easily decide to try very hard to kill each other anyway. Jeffrey Dean Morgan voices Conquest, and the man is having an absolute blast being absolutely horrible. Conquest doesn't just want to win, he enjoys this. He's been described as a warmonger who wants a worthy challenger, and this episode delivers that in full. The fight is an intentional callback to the season 1 finale. Elements like Conquest using Invincible as a shield to harm innocents mirror how Nolan once used Mark as a weapon, and Invincible's brutalized final stand echoes the Omni-Man fight beat for beat. The show is doing something deliberate with that symmetry, and it works. I almost stopped watching. I didn't, and I'm glad, but I also kind of wish I had, so I could have experienced the dread of not knowing how it ended for just a little bit longer. Episode 6. Thrag shows up in full effect, and the internet had thoughts. Thrag, the ruthless Grand Regent of the Viltrum Empire and the main antagonist of Season 4, is voiced by Lee Pace, known for playing Ronan the Accuser. Now, the discourse around Thrag's voice and appearance when Episode 6 dropped was something to witness. The community took one look at him and started clowning. His face was too soft, too gentle for a being who is functionally a one-man extinction event. His voice was too measured, too composed. Where was the booming menace from the comics? Where was the sheer physical terror? And look, I get it. Thrag in the comics is drawn like someone asked an artist to depict pure primal dominance and gave them no further instructions. He looks like he was carved out of a mountain by a mountain that was angry about it. Translating that energy to a voice is a tall order. But here's the thing, episode 6, Thrag is Thrag before he's been truly provoked. He's the Grand Regent. He's calculated, he rules through presence, not volume. The showrunners emphasize that Thrag is not only defined by his power, but by his presence as a ruler, requiring a performance that reflects both calculated leadership and restrained brutality. Episode 6, Thrag, is the guy before he decides you've earned his full attention. Episode 7 is the guy after he decides. Episode 7. I will say very little to protect anyone who hasn't watched it, so if you haven't, please go and watch it. But I will say this. If you were one of the people calling Thrag soft, Episode 7 finds out where you lived and slides a note under your door. This note says, "You were wrong. Regards, Thrag." He is genuinely terrifying in this episode. Every concern people had about the voice, the face, the composure, all of it makes sense when you actually watch him actually let go. The restraint wasn't weakness, it was contempt. He wasn't afraid to show what he could do. He just didn't think it was necessary yet. And this is the part that hits me the hardest, Mark runs. We have never seen Mark Grayson run from a Viltrumite, not his father, not Conquest, not Anissa. No matter how badly he's been getting beaten, he stays. He fights, that's who Mark is. He ran from Thrag. That single moment without a single word tells you everything you need to know about where Thrag sits relative to every other threat this show has ever presented. It is the most effective piece of character shorthand the show has ever done, more than any amount of exposition or power level comparison could ever communicate. Mark Grayson, who has literally been to hell and back, literally this season, took one look at what Thrag was doing and decided that was above his pay grade. And he was right. And then the finale asks you to come down from all of that, and somehow it actually works. After nearly dying twice during the Viltrumite War, Mark returns to Earth carrying more emotional weight than any previous season. And the finale leans into that completely, with his war-inflamed anxieties manifesting as vivid hallucinations of Thrag slaughtering everyone he loves. It's a quieter episode, the smallest episode of the season by a wide margin, and at first, that's jarring. But then you realize this is exactly what the show needed to do. After 5 episodes of relentless escalation, the finale is the show sitting with Mark in the aftermath, letting him be a person. Eve tells Mark she's got an abortion, and the way the show handles the scene is honestly remarkable. It doesn't flinch, it doesn't editorialize, it just lets the moment exist. Mark is present with her in a way that shows how much he's grown from the kid we met in season 1. This is a person who has matured through suffering, and it shows. And then, just when you think you've reached safe harbor, Thrag shows up. For real this time, not a hallucination. He offers Mark a proposal. Allow the surviving Viltrumites to live among the people of Earth, hidden and unbothered, so they can rebuild their species. Any refusal means annihilation of the planet. Mark hesitates. He wants to say no. You can hear him wanting to say no. And then he imagines the cost of saying no. And he says yes. Thrag departs with the line, "The universe is strange. You've become our savior, willing or not." And the episode ends with Mark alone, asking himself, "What have I done?" That line, "You are the savior of Viltrum," coming from Thrag, delivered with that particular combination of sincerity and contempt that Lee Pace absolutely nails, has to be the most psychologically complicated compliment anyone has ever received. Mark spent his entire life running from his father represented, running from the Viltrumite Empire, fighting against it at every turn. And now he is, functionally, its savior. The thing he hates most about himself is the thing that saved billions of lives and preserved the very empire he's been fighting to escape. That's good writing. That's not just a cool plot twist, that is the show understanding its own themes well enough to twist the knife with them. If I had to level one legitimate criticism at this season, and I do have one, it's the animation inconsistency. The show has always had a budget problem. It's animated. The explosion of voice talent they've assembled is genuinely staggering. You've got J.K. Simmons, Stephen Yeun, Sandra Oh, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Seth Rogen, Lee Pace, Peter Cullen, Michael Dorn. The list is almost absurd. It's a flex. It's a real, genuine flex. But occasionally you can see where the budget went. There are moments where this season where the animation is just serviceable. Backgrounds look flat. The motion is stiff. And when the show is capable of producing scenes just as the conquest fight, these dips stand out more than they would on a less ambitious show. I mean, compared to season 1, it's like apples and diamonds. I don't know where I was going. It's not a deal breaker. It never has been for Invincible, but it's the thing I'd point to if someone asked me to find something wrong with it, because I think they deserve honest feedback. Spend a little more time on the animation. The voice cast is incredible. We know, we believe you. Now, give them prettier backgrounds to stand in front of. Season 4 of Invincible is the best the show has been. It's more confident, more willing to sit in discomfort, more willing to let its characters fail and break and still have to wake up the next morning and do it all over again. The conquest fight will be discussed for years. The Thrag convo in the finale will be discussed for years. Oliver and Mark's evolving dynamic is setting up something that I think could be the emotional core of season 5 in a way that I can't fully articulate yet, but I'm feeling it in my gut. I'm genuinely excited for next season, which is almost annoying. I had things to do with my emotional bandwidth, Invincible has decided those things don't matter. Thrag called Mark the savior of Viltrum, and Mark looked like he'd rather have lost. That's the show. That's always been the show, and season 4 is the best version of it we've seen yet. See you next season.